Welcome to Stop My Crisis. I'm your host, Vivian Gaspar. We're here today to discuss a very serious topic that unfortunately goes too many times undiscussed and unaddressed. I'm very fortunate to have with me here today Dr. Stacey Plichta, a professor of health policy at CUNY School of Public Health. Dr. Plichta conducts research on sexual and domestic violence. She began her public health career by conducting date rape prevention programs on college campuses. Thank you very much, Doctor, and welcome here to our show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Please tell us some facts and figures that largely go unnoticed by the general public.
Okay. Well, the first fact I want people to know is that being a victim of sexual violence is very common in this country. Half of all women will at some point in their lives be a victim of sexual violence, as will about 20% of all men. What's most shocking about this is that most of that sexual violence comes from people that we know. 80% of women who are raped or sexually assaulted, as well as men, it happens by someone they know, an acquaintance, a family member, somebody in their circle. For college women, they're at especially high risk because the highest people at highest risk for being raped or sexually assaulted are age 30 or under. And
30 or under?
30 or under. And about 20% of women are sexually assaulted while in college. And it has devastating consequences for them.
And I'm sure this is something that haunts them for the rest of their lives and changes even their own behavior, correct?
Yes, it does. The good news, though, is that women can go on to survive sexual assault and live full and joyful lives. The important thing to know is they can't do it alone. And I would urge women, if they've been sexually assaulted, the most important thing is to tell somebody, to call a rape crisis hotline, to tell a trusted friend, but not to keep it inside, because the telling is the beginning of the healing.
That makes complete sense. And I want to know, what can women do to lower their risk of acquaintance or date rape?
The main things that women can do are communicate, stick together, and plan their party-going activity. Most date rape involves alcohol on the part of both the victim and the perpetrator. In fact, the several studies have shown that upwards of 20% of college men in surveys report they've deliberately tried to get women drunk to have sex with them.
20%? 1 in 5 men have admitted to this?
Yes. And between 10 and 25% of men, depending on the survey, have admitted to some form of attempting to sexually assault or sexually assaulting a woman during their college years. So it's really important for women to know this. First, to note that 80% of men don't do this. And, most guys are not rapists, most guys are good guys. But like my mother said, trust everybody, but always cut the cards.
So here's my question. You're saying they're not normally rapists, but they could be facing the situation of what perhaps a he said, she said, right? Mm-hmm. So then what can a man do to prevent a date rape?
A man can do several things. The most important thing a man can do personally is to know that yes means yes, maybe does not mean yes, no for sure does not mean yes, silence does not mean yes. The best way to prevent date rape is to ask your partner if she wants to have sex. If you don't get an enthusiastic yes, stop. Because some women, because of how they're brought up, because of sexual mores, society, they may be saying, oh, okay, or yes, and look really uncomfortable. That doesn't mean they want to have sex with you.
But could they be prosecuted? I mean, if a woman passively said, oh, okay, could that even be constituted as an acquaintance or date rape?
It's much trickier. I don't think there's a clear answer to that question because women, it's very hard to prove date rape in a court of law. And so it's an easy crime, unfortunately, for men to get away with. However, they can be prosecuted if there's not clear consent. Absolutely, it's rape. But it's beyond worrying about legalities. Most men don't want to be rapists. Most men, I assume, want to have a good, satisfying sexual encounter with their partner. So the way to do that is to ensure consent. Do you want to do this? Sounds great. And what I've done in my trainings and said, if you're not sure if the woman's saying yes or not, pull back, stop. Because if she really means yes, she'll let you know. She'll let you know physically, she'll let you know verbally. And if she wasn't quite ready, then you may have just prevented yourself from forcing yourself on a woman.
That is a very good tip. So what is the effect sexual assault can have on a person's life?
Sexual assault for both, and I know we've been talking about it in terms of women, but men are sexually assaulted too, can have devastating effects. It can lead to physical health problems, stomach aches, back aches, headaches, can lead to depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, can have horrible social consequences. The number one reason that women leave college is because they've been victims of sexual assault and never got the help they needed. It's really important, if you know someone who's been a victim of sexual assault or if you've been one, to reach out. Every college has a women's center or a health center. They have designated people to assist with sexual assault. There are federal laws that protect women because there's also consequences for people in their work life. So people who are sexually assaulted miss more days of work in the year following the sexual assault than before. The good news, though, is that if you're sexually assaulted, it doesn't doom you to a life of bad physical and mental and social health outcomes, but it's really hard to recover by yourself. You need help to get back to a joyful life.
So my last question would be, should you do if you find out that one of your friends or an acquaintance has mentioned to you that they've been a victim of sexual assault?
And keep in mind, 1 out of 2 women that you know has been a victim of sexual assault, statistically speaking. The first thing is to not judge them. Don't ask the questions, why did that happen to you? What were you wearing? Why were you drinking? Those are pointless questions. They're going to shut the person down. Listen, be non-judgmental, be supportive. If this is an event that just happened, strongly encourage the person to get medical help. Strongly encourage them to call the Rape Crisis Center, to call the police. But don't try to make them do anything. When someone's raped, they've had control taken away from them completely. It's important for their friends and family to give that control back. So you can suggest to someone, I think it would be a good idea if you did. But if they're not ready, don't push them, don't force them. Be there for them, listen to them, don't judge them, and let them and help them find sources of help. You can say to someone, here's the number for the Rape Crisis Hotline, and then they have it when they're ready to call.
So when our kids go to school, it is not just that our daughters can become victims and unfortunately end up making them not just a victim, but they would change colleges. But thank you for helping prevent our sons by being an accidental rapist. Thank you, Dr. Plichta. I appreciate it very much. Welcome back to Stop My Crisis. I am your host, Vivian Gaspar, and here with me today is Jessica Robinson. Jessica is a security and lifestyle expert with nearly 10 years in the private sector for a Fortune 50 company, with responsibilities including leading and supporting a $600 million business in the area of safety and security. She has trained and worked with people from around the world. And Jessica has 3 tips on what people should do in dating in today's world to keep them safe. Jessica, please give me those tips right now.
Yeah. So the top 3 tips that I think anyone can follow is, particularly today when we do online dating, is number 1, look at someone who has a complete profile. So you want to make sure that there's an actual headshot there, that all the questions are completely filled out. You want to make sure that for yourself, you don't have personal information on the file as well.
What type of personal information would that be that someone should leave off?
Your email address and your phone number.
Oh, people actually put that.
Yes, yes. So if you're just perusing and you're just looking to meet people, you do want to make sure that you keep that information private.
What are the key signs that start to indicate someone might not be safe in a relationship once they've gotten that far?
Yeah, so if you get to a point where the person you're dating wants to see your social media accounts, they want to know what you're posting and how you're posting it.
Oh my goodness.
If they're asking you what you're doing with your time, if they get upset because you're spending too much time with friends or because you're spending too much time with coworkers outside of work, that's definitely a red flag.
I think that sounds like very controlling behavior.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is, and it can be really scary. A lot of times it is about power within a relationship, so we really just want to make sure that when we see those things happening, particularly increasing over a period of time, that's a red flag we're paying attention to.
Let me ask you, what is a typical time frame that someone sees that occurring in? Does that usually occur quickly, or does someone really cultivate that situation of control over a period of months? What's the more typical situation?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say typically we would see something like that happening over a period of months because someone is who they is, and so typically that'll start to show pretty quickly. But the truth is, sometimes it shows after people are married, when that's kind of the scary case, when it gets really stressful in a relationship, after children have entered into the relationship. So it's really important at any time that you start to see these red flags go up that you pay attention to it and not ignore them.
Let me ask you, is this more relevant in either dynamic? For example, is this more men controlling, or does this happen with women trying to control men? Is it both sides of the coin?
Yeah, it's both sides of the coin. It's definitely not one way. And then also it can be if you're in a same-sex relationship.
Of course,
that's the case as well. So it's really important that you really pay attention to the behaviors that someone has, because it can be a man or a woman doing this.
Well, I just always like to break the stereotypes. So I just thought
I
check the clarity
on that.
I'm so glad
you did. Yeah, I'm so glad. I love breaking the stereotype on that too.
Always looking to break the stereotypes. We just had someone on talking about domestic violence where men are the recipients from women, and no one ever thinks of that.
Yeah.
So I just want to always check on that.
Yeah, no, that's
People
fantastic.
should all across the board become of awareness instead of just thinking that it's always in one direction.
Yes,
because of course with same-sex relationships it's either one, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So always breaking that stereotype. That's a good idea.
Yeah, definitely.
And what I wanted to ask you is, do you have any relevant stories that would tie in that you may have encountered in your life with friends or during your work time that you could share with us?
Yeah, sure. One situation that actually came up last week.
Oh, that recently.
Yeah, that recent.
That's recent.
Yeah, that's pretty recent. And so this is a situation where, if this was a situation, and one of the other tips I get for someone who could be in a beginning of an abusive relationship is if someone is violating your privacy. And so this is a situation where these were two young, early 20-somethings, and they were lying in bed together, and all of a sudden, in this case, the gentleman pulled out a camera and started to take pictures of her. And when she realized this was happening, she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm sending this to a friend."
Oh.
And this is just a red flag of a situation.
Was it during intimacy or just in general?
It was in general. So it was, I believe it was just after intimacy. And that was definitely
That's
scary.
very strange.
Yeah, very, very strange, very scary. And so that was a lack of privacy, a lack of respect. Why was he sending that to a friend? Could that have ended up on social media? Could that have hurt, then we can think about.
Had they been together for a while at that point?
They were dating for a few months.
Oh my gosh.
Dating for a few months. And at that point, you know the person. So now the question is, do you call the police? Do you break up with this person? Was this a one-time incident? Could this happen again? Does the person know that they actually stepped over a boundary? And so these are the type of things. And the person that actually was talking to me about this was a parent, and so of the parent of the daughter. And that's what's really scary too. Is it had to be serious when the daughter went to the parents and said, "Hey, something happened while I'm dating," because a lot of times, of course, young people don't always do that. And so that's definitely a great example of a boundary.
That's a fantastic example. One thing I heard not too long ago in some circles I was traveling is someone got married within a matter of 6 months or less. I think it was 4 months of dating. I was really shocked because now it reminds me of your mentioning that this type of behavior happens. Usually the stripes are made clear, or the who the really person comes out clearly after the course of a few months. So do you recommend that someone definitely waits at least a couple of years before getting married so they don't jump into something that's harder to reverse?
I would personally. I would do that, but love is different for everyone, and everyone's different. And I recently saw something where a couple got married literally after 4 months, and so everyone's different. But I do think that's a great thing to do when you can really see people when they're up, when they're down, and not only that, but you're testing them out too, right? You're really trying to make sure that they're the ones that are right for you. So it can be a great way to know to make sure that they're really there for you when you need them most.
So lastly, I would like to find out, what does someone do if they wake up and realize, wow, I think I'm in an abusive relationship. I think that person's being controlling. I'm not used to this. What do I do?
Yeah.
What do you recommend?
Yeah, the first thing I would just say is awesome that you recognize this, because not everyone does recognize it. And one thing I would also say is along the way is just remember that this isn't, abuse isn't just physical. It's also emotional. It's also mental. So I would say at this point, you want to make sure that you include a friend or a family member that can really help you navigate through this, because you need support along the way, whether it's to move in with them or to really think about where you could really live next, or think about if you need to switch jobs, which all of these are really serious things to consider. And then the last thing, reach out to the, I would say personally, the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I think that they're great when it's free and it's 24/7. And so, and that website is thehotline.org.
That's fantastic information. And do you have one quick last tip that we could end off, a nice takeaway, if you will?
Yes, one thing I would say is I just spoke about emotional abuse and mental abuse. If at any point you see someone who is starting to belittle you, belittle your beliefs, or think that what you're saying isn't worth it, that also is a really big sign.
I think also image shaming. You know, if someone's calling you fat or trying to tell you you're eating too much.
Exactly.
Something along those lines. People don't recognize that as controlling or abusive behavior, right?
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Jessica, it was fantastic having you on, and people should have their eyes wide open. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm always making it a passion of mine to do what we can to mitigate the huge problematic crisis of divorce, and even other types of failed relationships cause a huge amount of trickle-down effect through the whole family. It affects children, the financial security of the family. So how do we backtrack that and take a few steps to be more proactive and prevent the failed marriage or failed relationship in the beginning? Perhaps someone here today can help us with one aspect of how to prevent those failures. Welcome here today is Jim Cullum. Jim is the author of Let Me Show You How I Love You, a simple guide for men that shows them how to wow their honey. Jim has been a healthcare professional for over 40 years, and he bases his book on conversations he's had with hundreds of women. Welcome, Jim. Nice to see you here at our studios.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I am very anxious as a woman who's been in relationships with men to hear what you have to say today. Because really, if I think the saying of happy wife, happy life, I'd love to meet more men who believe that. And I think you're trying to create those men with this book. Is that right?
Exactly so.
So I understand that the several studies, and I'm pretty sure everyone's heard these studies by now, that 40 to 50% of especially first marriages end in divorce. And then we have Psychology Today reporting that one of the top complaints that women have about men is forgetting birthdays and anniversaries. Isn't there more to it than that, Jim?
Well, there's a lot more. Men become complacent. Most men, not all men, but there are men that become complacent in their relationship. Everything sort of gets bland and blasé, and as the years go along, they remember less and less of the little significant things that started that relationship off so incredibly well.
Well, I always thought, from what I heard, that once the man has the woman and the chase is no longer what excites him, he feels, why should he try so hard? Does that have to do with it?
Yes, it does, actually. A lot of men, as we said, become complacent. They get used to things, and they're comfortable with the way things are. But everybody likes to be appreciated.
That's right.
When we're at work, we want our boss to appreciate us. Well, your wife likes to be appreciated. Your girlfriend wants to be recognized and appreciated as well.
So let me ask you this. I heard you say in your book that how a man can deeply touch his woman without even using his hands. What do you mean by that?
By doing little significant things. They seem to be insignificant, but they are truly very significant, little tiny things that make the relationship special, such as writing a little note and leaving it somewhere where your significant other, your spouse, can find it a few hours later when you're not around, my wife teaches, and I'll write a little note and I'll hide it in her grade book for fourth period. So when she's in school and she opens up the plan and surprise, fourth period, there's a little, honey, I love you, I miss you, can't wait till you come home tonight. That puts a wonderful smile on their face and warmth in the heart.
So is a lot of this book really how to compliment your wife or your girlfriend, the love of your life, or are there other little tricks? For example, what are some of the things that a woman really wants from the man in her life? It can't just be gifts, right?
No, not at all. Women want to be respected. They want to be listened to. They want you to understand when you're in a conversation that you should be listening to what they're saying, not just hearing them.
What is the difference? So many people think, well, I'm listening, I'm hearing. Isn't that the same thing?
No, not at all. Hearing to just go along with what's happening, you're really not paying attention to the detail that's coming out. And you can listen sometimes, even when she's not speaking directly to you.
So what do you mean by that?
One day I was walking through the living room and my wife was watching the television. I was in my own world and she was in the world of the television. And she uttered a little sentence, simply, I would love to do that someday. And I just glanced at the TV screen and there were hot air balloons floating across the screen.
Wow.
And
that sounds very romantic.
yes, actually, but you know what? Even being married 30 years at the time, I would have never guessed that was something she would want to do. You know, you feel you know a person after that length of time, and it's something that she really wanted to do. And a few months later for her birthday, I surprised her with a hot air balloon trip. It meant everything to her. She had such a wonderful time.
She must have been so surprised and wondering how you knew that's what she wanted. So another question is, so many men think it's all about the money. I think it's how men may be, or at least some of them, hardwired. It's about the money. What expensive gift can I buy? And I'll tell you, as a woman, just a small gesture of a candle or a single flower to spend less money sometimes means more. So what can a man do to make his woman happy without spending a dime, any money at all?
Very easy. And it matters not if your lady is a stay-at-home full-time mom or she goes out into the corporate world, but by the end of the day, you're on your feet all day. I'll have my wife sit on the couch, put her feet up on my lap, take her shoes off, and I'll gently begin to massage her feet, and she melts like butter.
That sounds wonderful. I'm sure your wife is very lucky, and I hope she realizes exactly how lucky she is. So before everyone has an opportunity to buy your book, what would be two little juicy giveaway, takeaway pieces of information you'd give all the men in our audience?
Pay attention. Really pay attention to those little things that she does. Or she might make a remark about her girlfriend had this really nice perfume on. That's a hint. When the occasion comes, you might want to buy that perfume. Or somebody wore this particular style or type of clothing. That's another hint. Put it away in your mental memory, and when the time comes, you'll be ready to really do something that wows her.
Jim, how about for a man who says maybe they're in their 40s or 50s and they're like, wait a second, I can't remember anything. How about actually writing it down? A lot of cell phones now have little memo notes. Why not make a list? My love wants this, this, and this, and start a queuing list so when the time comes and you want to do something, refer to the list. What about that?
Well, actually, in the back of my book, I have a whole section dedicated to the ideas, thoughts, and things that men should know about that special woman in their life, where you'll never forget. It's fill in the blank, her birthday, our anniversary, other anniversaries that are important to her, her favorite perfume, her favorite restaurant, her favorite food, her favorite music, things that you'll need to know at some point, and the reference material, it's right there. It's a great handy reference.
Jim, how about not just a wedding anniversary? What if it's the anniversary of the day you met or the day you first had a kiss?
It's all in there.
Excellent.
It's all there. They can fill in the blanks. It's easy, and then when they need to take it out later, it's right there.
And the one other thing I was just wondering to ask you is, if someone's not even married yet, they should still pay attention, because nowadays you really should have a decent amount of at least dating, if not before whatever leads up to getting married.
Exactly.
Do you recommend that people start then instead of waiting till they're several years into their marriage?
You should be doing this all along. Practice makes perfect, and the more you do things like this, even if it's for your mother, it's Mother's Day or a birthday, be attentive, do the right thing. We're here to create a wonderful world, a happy world, a great loving community, and it starts in the home.
Very good. Excellent information. You know what? I think that you can help keep marriages together, because I understand another statistic that I've read also is that women stray when they feel that their husbands no longer care. They don't show them enough attention. So women stray outside the marriage when they don't feel that they're getting the attention from their husbands. So honestly, I think that if men, or at least some men, follow this advice, their wife will they can prevent divorces by keeping their wife at home with them.
Exactly. It's the appreciation, that little bit of attention. When I say pay attention, you don't have to be doting over her every moment. That's horrible, and it'll get you in trouble. But paying attention to what she does, what she likes, what she doesn't like, and doing those little tiny things that she will know, wow, he really appreciates me. Dinner was great tonight. It was really fantastic. I don't know what you did differently, but I really enjoyed it. Something like that is so incredibly important and puts big deposits in that emotional bank account.
Emotional bank account. I've heard that term. Well, thank you, Jim, and I hope that you and your information will help prevent just a few more marriage or relationship breakups.
Thank you very much.